We are always striving to have a great discussion here at the Abilities Expo, whether if it's in person or even here virtual. We like to make sure that you, who are part of our community, are abreast on a lot of things that are out there that really help our community in particular. And my next guest and what their organization is doing is so integral to what we need when it comes to assistive and adaptive technologies. We wanted to make sure that you knew about this great organization and what it has done and continue to do for our community. And joining me right now to discuss this is my friend, the great Steve Ewell, the executive director of the Consumer Technology Association. Sir Stephen, what's up? How are you, my friend?
Paul, it is so good to join you here today. Things are going great in the world. My Yukon Huskies are up on Iowa right now, and I'm joining you here as we get a chance to talk at the Abilities Expo. So really thrilled to be here with you today.
Awesome. March Madness is always fun when our team is still in it, right, Steve?
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely so. Hey, again, welcome to the Abilities Virtual Experience Part 3. We wanted to have you on, Steve, to just talk about some of the great things that the CTA Foundation is doing when it comes to this realm. And Steve, before we get into the nuts and bolts of our discussion, can you give us a brief rundown of the function of the CTA Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the CTA Foundation, we're a charitable foundation. So we're out looking to support great causes that are using technology to help older adults or people with disabilities. The CTA in our name is the Consumer Technology Association. So they're a trade association. They represent over 2,000 technology companies, everything from the large global brands to the brand new startups that you might find just being created, and the installers who might come and install those technologies. So it's really across the technology spectrum, and probably best known for running CES, which is a large tech trade show that we have every January. And I'm usually excited to have you there, Paul. We did it virtually this year, and we'll be hopefully back together again next year. But we launched this foundation almost 9 years ago now as a way to give back on behalf of the industry. And when we were creating the foundation, we looked at what we should focus on. Our industry does a lot of great work with kids in STEM education. We think that's critical. We highly encourage it, but rather than be one more organization doing that work, we recognized that there were two areas that technology can make a significant difference in, but don't necessarily get the attention that they deserve. And that was both older adults and people with disabilities. So over the last 8 years or so, we've funded a number of nonprofit organizations all over the country using technology, and we're thrilled to see that work going. But we also do other projects to highlight the types of technologies that are out there. And I'm sure we'll get to dive into that a little bit more in our conversation. So really just thrilled to be joining you here today.
Absolutely, Steve. It's really an honor to see your face and have this chat with you as well. And Steve, when we look at this pandemic as a whole, what has that done with maybe the acceleration when it comes to assistive and adaptive technologies? Or let's take telehealth. For example, we know many persons with disabilities like myself weren't able to get into our doctor's office like we normally have, but telehealth kind of blew up and really became the norm. You mind speaking on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's been a whole host of different subject areas that have gotten more attention, whether it is things like telehealth, things like working remotely, and other topics like that. But yeah, prior to the pandemic, telehealth was certainly a thing, but it was still something that a small minority of the population had really experienced or utilized. And what we found is during the pandemic, all of a sudden there was a need. And the government allowed some flexibility with allowing greater usage of telehealth technologies. And now we're seeing it's really interesting as we're talking to both our grant recipients and potential grant recipients for this year. an expansion of not just kind of your physical telehealth appointments, but telemental health is a major topic right now. We've all experienced isolation over this last year, and looking at ways to engage, whether it is with a therapist or quite frankly, just getting together with friends and family virtually until we can get together again in person, which hopefully is coming sooner and sooner. But we're also seeing projects like teledental and other areas of health, and really the types of ways that these technologies can be applied to create the healthcare to people who aren't able to get out of their homes. But it also helps for those check-in appointments where it's really going to meet with the doctor, just make sure that things are okay, but you're not necessarily needing to get hands-on or have them check anything out. You can do a lot of that via a virtual connection, like how we're talking right now.
And Steve, I've been coming to the Abilities Expo since about 3 years post my accident. So I've been coming here for about 25 years. And there was a time when we saw not a lot of technology at the Abilities Expo, because in our minds, we thought technology was video games, TVs, and cool electronics. But over the years, Steve, we've seen this symbiotic relationship when it comes to technology and assistive and adaptive devices out there. And Steve, what does the foundation do to make sure that this symbiotic relationship is beneficial for all, especially the disabled community and also the aging and adult population as well?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the world of assistive technology and the world of broader general technologies, and the way that those worlds are coming together and merging, and we're able to take advantage of some of the economies of scale that come along with the broader technology base, but including accessibility into the design of those products. And I think that's where it's so important to see so many different, what we would consider general technology companies, Apples and Googles and Samsungs and all these other, a lot of companies that people may not have even heard of, but are including accessibility within their products, which is great because it makes it usable by so many more people. So it's interesting to see that we're seeing those companies showing up at Abilities Expo and other disability focused events. And then at CES, we're seeing, the Visperos, and we're seeing the Orcams and other, what might have been considered traditional assistive technology, being at a more broad general technology show, because there is opportunity for these two worlds to come together and make better products for people of all abilities, all ages. And from a foundation perspective, we look at this as a great opportunity for us to highlight the types of technologies that are out there. We do a lot of work helping companies understand the opportunities around designing for accessible and usable technologies, because it's not just charitable work. It is, quite frankly, it's a business opportunity for them. And as a charitable foundation, my goal is not to sell a bunch of products for anyone, but I want to have the best products on the market because it'll help us all, regardless of age or ability. So I'm really excited to see what can be done in this space. We do a lot of work around not just the education, but also helping to recognize the companies that are doing well. Actually, just this coming Wednesday, the 31st, we're going to do a pitch competition with AARP Innovation Labs, where we're going to highlight 8 startup companies that are making technologies that could help with social connections. Really thrilled. It's going to be a fun event. So I encourage people to attend that. And actually, we'll have the audience help vote and choose one of the winners. So we do events like that. We do contests. I know you've been involved in promoting where we give away some booths at CES, allow some of these smaller startups that are addressing this space to get the opportunity to really highlight their technologies. So there's a lot that can be done. We're certainly not we haven't done everything. There's still more to do, but we're on it. We're trying to do everything we can.
And it's really like a Abilities Expo connection too, because one of our exhibitors who used to exhibit when we had in-person events was Miron VR, and Miron VR actually won a contest where they were able to exhibit at CES in Eureka Park. That was pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, they were a great example of using VR to help with physical therapy. And yeah, I'm really excited to see those companies continue to build and just, really build some incredible products. And that's what I'm excited about. Whenever you see entrepreneurs like that, building something for a need that they see, working with the communities that they're trying to serve. I know you've done some work with them, Paul, and use their devices, because that's the important part as well, is making sure you're engaging the communities that you're trying to develop for in the development of the products. Because the number of times you hear from startups and they're like, I've solved the problem for whichever disability community or whichever age group that they want to focus on. And you say, oh well, how many people have you tested it with? And they're like, well, I have one friend that they thought it was great. And it's like, okay, well, we can help connect you with some great organizations that can get you many more user testers and really help develop the types of products that can really help a broad consumer audience.
And you know what, Steve, that brings up another good subject, because that is the saying, nothing about us without us. I kind of remix that with nothing for us without us, meaning that we have to be involved from the ground level. People from our community. Kind of reminds me of a few years back, we had Sony PlayStation come out to the Abilities Expo in Los Angeles, and a lot of the developers were there, the people who make decisions. So they got to see hands-on how people with disabilities were having barriers playing video games. And when more and more companies do that, come out to events like the Abilities Expo and exhibit and see how we interact with their products, I think it's going to be a win-win for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sony's doing some really amazing work in this space now, Microsoft as well, in the gaming space, but really kind of across the spectrum. And, that's where, some of the work that you're doing with United Spinal now, Paul, to help bring together a consumer group that can help test and, provide that feedback that is so important. Because as you know, if you're building it with accessibility in mind, you can do some really great things. When you're trying to tack on accessibility at the end, it really is hard. So that's why it's so important to have events like this, where we can really help companies understand and build the products that can help so many people.
And Steve, we've had this conversation before about social isolation, and I think last time you and I talked, I talked about how we in the disabled community, this is what we have dealt with, like many of us from day one, since we've been disabled or since we were born with a disability, this social isolation. Now we're starting to see ones take more notice, because this pandemic has put more people in this pot who deal with social isolation. What are some things, Steve, especially with this competition that is going on with the pitch competition, that you guys are finding out more about social isolation and the disabled community as a whole, or the aging and adult population as a whole?
Yeah, well, social isolation, it's not a new issue. I mean, maybe some people feel it is because of the pandemic, and it's reached so many more people over the last year, but it was something that had a massive impact on the population well before we reached the pandemic, and particularly the aging and disability communities were susceptible to it, because if you're not free to just go out and run errands, if you're reliant on things like paratransit or other solutions along those lines, it can really limit your ability to get out and engage. So what we're looking at doing with this pitch competition is we've got actually we have 8 companies. We had dozens and dozens and dozens of companies apply. It was really impressive. We could have probably run 3 or 4 competitions and all had amazing companies competing for this one, but we narrowed it down to 8, and they are really across the board, from dating apps to VR apps, community engagement, other types, gaming. We have a gaming board on there. So there's really an incredible number of products there. And we're going to get a chance to have them each, it's short. They each have 3 minutes to pitch their product. And then we've got a bunch of VCs lined up who are going to question them and dig into their pitch a little bit further. The VCs are going to pick their winner for the night, and then the audience gets to vote and pick the audience, the People's Choice Award as well, so that we have a chance to really recognize all the great innovations going on in this space. And I think that's important. It's a good chance to get, some of these companies are not necessarily companies that are purely focused on either aging or disability. They're building general consumer technologies, but this is a chance when we say, all right, you're pitching to this audience, you need to be thinking about how does your product work for these populations. All of a sudden you get the founders of these companies sitting there saying, oh, well, we can do that. We can make this little change, and all of a sudden it's going to work a lot better for the people we're trying to serve. So, it's these little carrots that can kind of help move them along. And, we've seen companies totally adapt the work that they're doing based on getting feedback from the disability community, whether it is through these pitches or just having a chance to meet the leaders of different disability organizations. I remember there was a sensor product that we had on the floor at CES a number of years ago. We had the CEO of the Hearing Loss Association come by it and say, this would be amazing for people with hearing loss. And they had never even thought about that market. All of a sudden, they started adapting, they started working, and now, that is an incredible little kind of alert system for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So, I really believe in building relationships. I don't have the amazing network of the Paul Amadeus Lanes of the world, but I try to build these connections here and there. I know you like to compare me to Kevin Bacon every so often, but yeah, I think there's amazing work that can be done by building relationships and working together.
Yeah, Steve is like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon in the tech world. If you knowing Steve, you'll know somebody who knows Steve, and it comes out all the way back around to Steve. Steve, you are a well-known commodity in this industry. And Steve, for instance, maybe some of the exhibitors right now who are listening, who have some assistive, and adaptive technology out there, and they may be wondering, are there going to be any more pitch competitions in the future? Are any competitions when CES goes back to in person that they can try to get involved and apply for either grants or even being a part of contests? How would they go about that?
Yeah, well, probably the best advice is to follow us on Twitter at CTA Foundation. And we will be making announcements based on some of those contests. But yeah, we have a few things planned for this year that I'm not quite ready to make the announcement on yet. Believe me, Paul, I know you'll somehow wrangle that announcement out of me before I'm even ready. But yes, we intend to be able to do those award programs again. In fact, we're actually I'll break this one here with you, Paul.
Awesome. Let's do it.
We are creating a brand new award that is going to be named after our founding chairman, John Shalom, who is the founder of AudioVox. Paul, you're from the radio audio background. I'm sure you know AudioVox.
Yes.
But he was instrumental in the founding of our foundation, and his big issue has always been social isolation. So we are actually at this pitch competition we're supposed to be announcing, but you're getting a little preview here. We're creating an award, the John and Jane Shalom Award, where we're going to recognize either an individual, a company, an organization, someone doing amazing work to address social isolation. So we'll be announcing that and looking for nominations. We'll open up the call for nominations a little later this summer, and hopefully be able to have our first awardee this fall timeframe. So yeah, there's some fun things coming up, really great opportunities to recognize those doing innovation in this space. And I'd love to keep in touch with anyone. They can visit ctafoundation.tech. It's .tech, or follow us on Twitter, and we're happy to engage and see how we can help all those people out there that are doing work in this space.
Awesome, Steve. We got time to entertain one question from our viewers right now, and the question is, they want you to put on your inner Jedi hat and predict the future. They said, what sorts of assistive tech will we see in the next few years, Master Yoda?
Well, I would love to be a Jedi. That sounds great. I won't speak like Yoda though when I'm answering this question, because that would just be a little too difficult. But no, I think
You will
we're
not,
going to.
right? Indeed, you will not speak that way. Right?
See, that's why I love you, Paul. But I think we're going to continue to see improvements in voice technologies, looking at certainly the voice assistants that are already out there, but also having that opportunity to interface. There's some really cool technologies out there that are also working on increasing the accessibility of voice for people who may have either extreme accents or speech difficulties. There's some really interesting work going on in that space. So that's something that can really be useful for many people, because it's just more natural to be able to speak to a device versus having to type or have to work your way through a menu system or something along those lines. So I do think we're going to continue to see a lot of great work in that space. I think AI is really going to be a big area within the assistive space. But that's not one that we're necessarily going to see as consumers. Well, we'll experience it, but it's not going to be you go down to the store and buy your latest AI. What it's going to be is the technology is going to be behind all these different technologies that you're using. It's going to customize your devices to you. So now all of a sudden, versus now we're getting to the point where a lot of these products are getting good at guessing kind of what you're looking to do now. Now we're going to get a little bit more predictive and being able to say, okay, I think based on the time of day and the heat, maybe we want to adjust the thermostat, pull down the blinds and, show Paul the latest Star Wars movie, because we know he needs to get caught up on that again. So yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to see some really cool AI work going on. And it's not just kind of entertainment and things like that, but we're going to see that helping to prevent things like all the scams that you're seeing, all the calls that we're constantly getting, the Nigerian prince emails that people have been dealing with for years. AI can help to mitigate some of those solutions. So we're going to see a lot of great applications for that, helping people all ages, all abilities. And the thing I love about tech is, while I can guess on a bunch of these types of products, there's going to be something that I just have no idea about that is going to suddenly emerge and be the next big thing. And I can't wait to see it.
I'm with you, Steve, and give that contact information out again, how ones can follow the great things that you guys are doing over at the CTA Foundation.
Absolutely. Well, they can go to ctafoundation.tech. It's .tech. Or follow us on Twitter at CTA Foundation. We're on LinkedIn. We're all over the place. You search enough for us, you'll find us. But definitely keep up with us on there. Join us on Wednesday for our pitch event if you're around. Would love to have people on there. Take a look at these companies and let us know who's the best of the 8, so they can go home as the People's Choice winner. And Paul, love being able to join you here today and be part of the Abilities Expo this year.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, my friend, and love the commitment that you at the CTA Foundation have when it comes to our community, assistive and adaptive technology, and also the aging and adult population, as well as the parent company CTA too, about how much you embrace us. We really appreciate that. So stay well, my friend. Stay safe. Looking forward to catching up with you soon.
Same to you.